Now, I'm talking really, really small numbers. I'm talking 135 people in attendance. Yeah, you heard me right. 135 people in attendance to watch the number 11 team in the country face Utah State during the Daytona Beach Classic.
Auriemma calls them out, calls the team immature, and then there was some criticism of Paige Bueckers.
Corner crash box out, so I'm very picky with what I'm doing right now because I'm showing the younger guys what we're supposed to do here, and so I'm just trying to lead and be an example.
Geno Auriemma has finally had enough. He's calling out his own team, labeling them immature, and even throwing criticism toward his star player Paige Bueckers. And you can feel the frustration boiling over because despite UConn's legendary history and Paige's undeniable talent, their games are pulling shockingly tiny crowds, numbers so low they're almost embarrassing, and it raises a huge question. Right now, why are fans tuning out one of the greatest programs in women's basketball? And even more importantly, is Paige really the generational star she's been hyped up to be? Or is she quietly being overshadowed by Caitlin Clark's unstoppable rise? Because when only 135 people show up to watch the number 11 team in the nation play in a tournament, it's not just disappointing, it's a crisis, and Geno knows it. Geno Auriemma isn't just frustrated, he's embarrassed. Because when you think about UConn women's basketball, you think about dominance, banners hanging from the rafters, and a program that has set the standard for decades. Yet right now, the Huskies are stepping onto the floor in front of crowds that look more like a high school scrimmage than a powerhouse program, and the numbers don't lie. We're talking about just 500 fans in the stands, sometimes even less. For a team that features Paige Bueckers, one of the most talented players in the country, and this is the part that really stings, because while Paige is grinding and trying to carry UConn forward, Caitlin Clark is out there selling out arenas coast to coast, filling every seat, turning every game into a spectacle, and forcing the whole nation to watch. So naturally, the conversation is shifting fast. People are asking if Bueckers truly has that superstar aura to draw fans the way Clark does, or if UConn is slowly losing the spotlight it built over decades of dominance. The reality is impossible to ignore. Paige Bueckers might be an elite player with smooth skills and a high basketball IQ, but the energy around her games just doesn't spark the same wildfire that Caitlin Clark has unleashed. Because while Clark walks into any arena and instantly turns it into a sold-out show with thousands lining up hours before tip-off, UConn is struggling to fill even a fraction of its seats, and that contrast is brutal. It's not about talent alone, it's about impact, and right now, Clark has become a cultural phenomenon with her deep threes, fiery leadership, and viral highlights, while Paige, despite her brilliance, plays in a more controlled and quiet style that hardcore fans respect, but casual audiences don't rush to see, and this gap is fueling the debate. Is Paige living in Clark's shadow, or is she simply a different kind of star who hasn't figured out how to capture the spotlight beyond the hardwood? And here's where the frustration for Geno Auriemma really comes into play, because he knows the history of UConn, he knows the dynasty he built, and yet he's watching his team get overlooked while fans flock to see Clark break records night after night. And the question is not whether Paige Bueckers is talented enough. Everyone agrees she is. The real issue is why that talent isn't translating into ticket sales, viral moments, and nationwide buzz. Because when you compare the numbers, it's shocking. Clark plays in Iowa and draws sellout crowds of 15 to 20,000. She goes on the road and the arena fills instantly, while UConn, one of the most historic programs in all of women's basketball, struggles to get 500 people to show up. That's not just a bad look, it's a wake-up call, and it puts the spotlight squarely on Bueckers to prove she can generate the same electricity that Clark brings every single night. The comparisons keep piling up, and they're brutal, because while Caitlin Clark can cross an ocean and fans in Europe would pack arenas just to watch her shoot from the logo, Paige Bueckers can barely draw a few hundred people to a tropical tournament. And that contrast is shaking up the entire conversation about star power in women's basketball. Geno Auriemma sees it, the players feel it, and the fans online won't stop debating it. And the truth is, Clark's style is made for the spotlight with those impossible threes, fiery celebrations, and moments that instantly go viral. while Paige, no matter how smooth or efficient, just hasn't created that same magnetic pull, so the stakes are higher than ever. Because this season isn't only about winning games, it's about whether UConn can find a way to reconnect with fans and prove that their superstar can shine just as bright as the one everyone can't stop talking about. And this is exactly why Geno Auriemma has started voicing his frustration so openly, because he knows that no matter how talented Paige Bueckers is, the perception right now is that she's being overshadowed by Caitlin Clark, and that's a narrative he desperately wants to change. But perception matters, and when you're the face of a legendary program like UConn, empty seats are louder than highlight reels. So every time Paige steps on the floor, she isn't just battling her opponent, she's fighting against the idea that Clark has completely taken over women's basketball, and that pressure is enormous. Because if Paige can't generate that same wave of excitement, the questions will only grow louder. Is she really the generational star everyone expected? Or just another great player living in the shadow of someone who redefined the game? The gap between Paige Bueckers and Caitlin Clark isn't just about numbers on the scoreboard, it's about the stories fans connect to. Because Clark, with her fiery personality and fearless deep shots, has become a character bigger than basketball, a player casual fans feel like they know, while Paige, despite her skill and leadership, hasn't built that same larger-than-life identity. And that's why arenas are empty when she plays, but bursting at the seams when Clark shows up. It's the charisma, the cultural pull, the moments that make people say, I can't miss this game. And unless Paige finds a way to break out of that quiet, efficient mold and create her own unforgettable brand of basketball magic, the narrative will keep painting her as the one chasing Clark's spotlight instead of the one writing her own. And now, the pressure on Paige Bueckers is reaching a whole new level, because it's not just about carrying UConn through another season, it's about proving she can survive what's coming next, the WNBA, where the game is faster, tougher, and far more physical than anything she's faced in college. And critics are already whispering that while her jump shot and court vision are elite, her body might not hold up against seasoned pros who will test her every single night. And this is where Geno Auriemma's frustration really hits home, because if Paige is struggling to dominate in college crowds with only a few hundred people watching, how is she going to handle the spotlight, the pressure, and the relentless grind of a league filled with the world's best? It's the question everyone is asking, and Paige has no choice but to answer it. As this season pushes forward, the comparisons between Paige Bueckers and Caitlin Clark aren't going anywhere. In fact, they're only going to get louder, because every game Paige plays will be measured against the sellout crowds and viral highlights Clark generates, and that's the brutal reality UConn has to face right now. Paige was once seen as the crown jewel of women's college basketball, the next big star who would carry the sport into a new era, but when stacked against Clark's unstoppable momentum, the harsh truth is she hasn't lived up to that transcendent status yet. And that leaves Geno Auriemma and his program scrambling to find answers, because UConn can't survive on history alone. They need Paige to step into the spotlight and prove she's more than just another great player. She has to show she can be the kind of star who doesn't just win games, but sells out arenas, drives the conversation, and forces the entire basketball world to pay attention again. So when you look at the big picture, the future of UConn basketball and Paige Bueckers herself hangs in the balance, because while Caitlin Clark has already cemented her place as the face of the sport, Paige is still fighting to prove that she belongs in that same conversation. And that battle is bigger than just wins or losses. It's about whether she can carry the weight of an entire program's legacy on her shoulders and become the star fans can't afford to miss. Geno Auriemma knows the challenge he's facing, because history doesn't guarantee future success. And if Paige can't step out of Clark's shadow, the Huskies risk fading into the background of a sport they once dominated. But if she can rise to the moment, embrace the spotlight, and remind everyone why she was once hailed as the next great icon, then maybe, just maybe, UConn can reclaim its place at the center of women's basketball history. Because right now, the clock is ticking, and the entire basketball world is watching to see if Paige Bueckers is truly ready to take that leap. So when you look at the big picture, the future of UConn basketball and Paige Bueckers herself hangs in the balance because while Caitlin Clark has already cemented her place as the face of the sport, Paige is still fighting to prove that she belongs in that same conversation. And that battle is bigger than just wins or losses. It's about whether she can carry the weight of an entire program's legacy on her shoulders and become the star fans can't afford to miss. Geno Auriemma knows the challenge he's facing because history doesn't guarantee future success, and UConn's banners don't fill arenas anymore. Fans want to see fire, charisma, and moments that go viral. And right now, that spotlight belongs almost entirely to Clark. But here's the twist that keeps this story alive. Paige Bueckers still has time. She has another year of eligibility if she chooses. She has a legendary coach pushing her every single day, and she has the raw talent to silence doubters once and for all. The question is whether she can turn that talent into something bigger than basketball, something that grabs people's emotions, because the truth is, the women's game is changing fast, and only those who evolve with it will own the future. Think about it. One matchup between Clark and Bueckers already drew more than 14 million viewers. That's primetime television numbers. That's bigger than some NBA broadcasts. And that means the potential is there. The rivalry is real. And the stakes couldn't be higher, because the next time these two step on the same court, the entire world will be watching, waiting to see if Paige can rise above the narrative and prove she's not just Clark's shadow, but a star who can command her own era. And that's why this moment is so critical. UConn isn't just fighting for a season, they're fighting for relevance in a sport that is exploding like never before. And Paige isn't just fighting for respect, she's fighting for her basketball identity. Will she fade into the category of what could have been, or will she seize the chance to cement her name right next to the legends of the game? The answer isn't clear yet, but one thing is, the clock is ticking, the pressure is building, and the basketball world is holding its breath to see if Paige Bueckers can truly step into the spotlight and claim the crown she was always expected to wear.